Hello friends, welcome one and all to this new class, and we are discussing about the ways and means of getting loan or credit from banks. What are the requirements, and we said about terms of credit, that the documents that we have to submit, the security that we have to put, that is the collateral, and the terms and conditions of repayment, all these are together called terms of credit. So let us see, in order to take credits, and we also said about different sources of credit. We said there is private money lenders are there, cooperatives are there, business people are there, and banks are there. So let us see what are the differences between these different agents of or sources of credit. So today we shall see about formal sectors of credit in India. Formal sector. Formal sector of credit. We shall see about that. You can take page number 48. So we have seen in the above examples that people obtain loans from various sources. The various types of loans can be conveniently grouped as formal sector loans and informal sector of loans. Among the former are loans from banks and cooperatives, and the informals lenders include money lenders, traders, employers, relatives, and friends, etc. So there are two types, formal and informal. So among the formal are, that is formal sector, who are the people? Banks and cooperatives. Banks and cooperatives, they are the ones included in this formal sector. Then informal sector, another one is called informal sector. So apart from these two, all other ones are informal sector. What are the informal sector? You can say friends, relatives, money lenders, business people. So all these are informal sectors. And so if you take from these people, you'll have to pay very high interest. And if you take from these, then the interest rate will be much less. So in graph 1, you can see the various sources of credit to rural households in India. Is more credit coming from formal sector or informal sector? See the graph given there. So we can see 30% is coming from money lenders, 3% from traders, 7% from relatives and friends, then 7% from others, 1% from landlords. So we can see 25% from banks and 27% from cooperative societies. So that means total 52% is coming from banks and cooperative societies. Then 48% is coming from informal sources. So which one is more? Formal sources or informal sources? And you'll find out this is 52% and this one is 48%. So you realize the slightly more from the formal sources of credit. People take more than half of the loans are taken from formal sources. So the Reserve Bank of India supervises the functioning of the formal sources of loans. So the Reserve Bank of India, that is ahead of all the banks in India, and they are supervising which bank is giving loan, how much interest are they charging, and so on. For instance, we have seen that the banks maintain a minimum cash balance out of the deposits they receive. So the money that people deposit in the banks don't give away loan to everyone. They deposit 15% there. The RBI monitors that the banks actually maintain the cash balance. Similarly, RBI sees that the banks give loans not just to profit-making business and traders, but also to small cultivators, small-scale industries, to small borrowers, etc. So RBI is checking that all the money that banks receive, they keep some reserve there. And also, the loan that is given not only to big business people and industries, but also the RBI checks and directs that they have to give loan to farmers, the small scale industries, and so on, and small borrowers for house purpose, maintaining house in the festivals, programs, and so on. So banks should be available to everyone, not only to rich business people, but even to ordinary medium farmers, business people, and so on. Periodically, banks have to submit information to the RBI on how much they are lending, to whom, at what interest rate, and so on. So, the banks have to submit a report to the bank annually, every year, or periodically, maybe after 3 months, or 6 months, or 9 months, or 1 year. So, the RBI will say that every bank have to come and submit their report, activity report, how much deposit did they receive from the people, how much money is given as a loan, and how much is the interest that is charged, and to who are the people they gave the loan. All that detail they have to go and submit to the RBI, Reserve Bank of India. And there is no organization which supervises the credit activities of lenders in the informal sector. But when we come to the informal sector, they can do what they like. There is nobody. RBI has no authority over them. So if they want, they will give to whom they like. They will charge the interest what they like, and so on. So they are not monitored by anyone. And they can lend at whatever interest rate they choose. So they can decide, they can fix how much interest they will charge. Earlier so they were charging 60% of interest annually. So those one they can charge even more. Nobody will control them. It is up to them. And there is no one to stop them from using unfair means to get their money back. And if they don't get back the loan that they have given, they can use any means to get it back. They may go and beat that fellow, they may go and chase them out, they may send gundas to go and beat them up. So all kinds of technique they will use in order to get back the money that they have given. So nobody is going to check. So they have the full freedom for that. So compared to the formal lenders, most of the informal lenders charge much higher interest on loans. Thus, the cost of the borrower of informal loans is much higher. That we have already seen. The banks charge just 5%, 8%, and so on interest. But here they charge 60%. So much of difference is there. Here maybe 8%. Here it is 60%. So much of interest difference is there. Therefore, they will be making lot of profit. People who are giving informal loans, they will be making a lot of profit. Then higher cost of borrowing means a higher part of the earnings of the borrowers is used to repay a loan. So higher cost of the borrowing means larger part of the earnings of the borrowers is to use for repaying the loan. So those who are taking loan from these informal sources, they have to pay 60%. That means if they take 100 rupees, they have to give back 160 rupees. That means the good amount that they are getting after the harvest, they have to use for giving back the loan. So afterwards, there may not be much money left for the farmer. So a lot of money they have to spend for giving back the loan. Hence, the borrowers have less income left for themselves, as we saw for Shamal in Sonpur. So in the last class we saw the example Shamal, that he is borrowing money and at the end he has to give back a lot of money, so there was hardly anything left. Then in certain cases, the high interest rate on the borrowing can mean that the amount to be repaid is greater than the income of the borrower, and this could lead to increasing debt, as we saw for Rama in Sonpur, and debt trap. Also, people who might wish to start an enterprise by borrowing may not do so because of the high cost of borrowing. So people who are borrowing from this informal sector, what happens? They have to give back a good amount of their earning. They have to use a good amount for giving back the loan. Afterwards, hardly anything may be left. The family will be suffering. The family will be poor. And sometimes, if they sell all the products, all the grain, all the harvest product, if they sell also, they may not get enough money to pay back the loan. That we saw the example of Rama, that woman who was working in others' field. So she is going on taking loan from others, and she is never able to repay. So that it happens to small farmers who are not able to get much profit from their hard work. And so all that they work, all the harvest that they get, they have to sell, and still that money is not enough for repaying. Therefore their family is always in debt. They can never be free from that debt trap. Always they have to borrow, and their money is never sufficient to repay the loan. And for these reasons, banks and cooperative societies need to lend more. So therefore, people should take loan from banks and the cooperatives where the interest is much low, so that they'll be able to repay. They will not be in a trap. And this would lead to higher incomes, and many people could then borrow cheaply for a variety of needs. So if the banks are able to give back to the people or give loan to the people, then people will be able to have better saving. Otherwise, all the profit that they get, they will be paying here to give interest. So in the bank means interest is much less, and therefore they will be able to pay back, and they will be able to have some savings. And they could grow crops, do business, set up small scale industries, etc. They could set up new industries or trade in goods. Cheap and affordable credit is crucial for the country's development, and so on. So they could set up new industries or trade in goods. So if people are able to take loan from the bank with a less interest, then they can use that money to start new industry and so on, and they can do business and so on. Then cheap and affordable credit is crucial for the country's development. So if people are able to get in loan for a cheaper rate from the banks and cooperatives, then they will start industry, they will start business, they will start other programs. Then they will get more profit, and the country will be growing up. When all the people are able to get more profit, that will be the sign that our country is developing, our country is progressing. So it is very essential that people take loan for a cheap rate or a low interest, so that they will be able to do a lot of business and country will be progressing. And nobody will be willing to start a business taking loan from these people, because here the interest is very high. Therefore, nobody will be willing to start starting the industry. Therefore, only if they get money with a lower interest rate, they will be able to start this industry. So that is essential for development of the country. Now let us see formal and informal credit and who gets what. Formal and informal credit and who gets what. So graph 2 shows that graph 2 is here, you can see in your book, that is about of all the loans taken by the urban households in 2003, what percentage was formal and what percentage was informal. So it is a graph of people who have taken loan in the year 2003, and you can see the poor households, they have taken, you can see the two colors are given there. The blue color is indicating that percentage loans taken from informal sector. Then the purple percentage of loans taken from formal sector. So the poor families, from where did they take loan? 85% of the people took loan from informal sector, giving high interest. Only 15% of the people went to bank for taking loan. Then households with few assets. So people who are having small assets, small field, small area and so on. So what about them? 53% of them went to informal sector for taking loan. Then just 43% of the people went to the bank for taking loan. So there is improvement is there. More people went to the bank, but still more than half of the people are going to informal sector. Then when we come to well-off household, people who are rich, they can manage, they can afford. There you see only 28% went to informal sector. Then 72% went to banks for taking loan. And again a rich household, only just 10% went to informal sector and 90% of them went to banks for taking loan. So when we look at this, we see the poor people are always going to the informal sector. That means they are exploited. They are not able to get loan from the bank. Only the rich people, as the people grow, become richer and richer, we see more and more people are able to get loan from the bank. So bank is giving loan mostly to the rich people and not the poor people. The poor people are continuing to take loan from money lenders and other private people, and by paying very rich interest rate. That's why poor people continue to remain poor and the rich people continue to grow richer and richer. That is the situation in our country. Now let's see. Graph 2 shows the importance of formal and informal sources of credit for people in urban areas. And the people are divided into four groups, from poor to rich, as shown in the figure. You can see four groups of people. People who are very poor, people who are little bit rich, people who are quite rich, and people who are very rich. So four categories of people, and we see how much loan they take and from where they are taking and so on. You can see 85% of the loan taken by poor households in the urban areas are from informal sources. So they take from informal sources. They are not able to go to the bank. Maybe they don't have the document to give, or maybe they don't have the security to keep in the bank and so on. Then compare this with the rich urban households. What do you find? Only 10% of their loans are from informal sources, while 90% are from formal sources. So when we come to the richest people, we see only just 10% of the people are going to the informal sector, and the 90% are going and taking loan from banks. A similar pattern is also found in rural areas. The rich households are availing cheap credit from formal lenders, whereas the poor households have to pay a heavy price for borrowing. So we see the people who are rich, they are able to go to the bank and get interest, and they need to give back only just 5% of interest. But the poor people, they continue to borrow from the money lenders and they have to pay very high interest rate. That's why I said poor people become poorer and poorer, because after the harvest they have to use all their source of income to pay back to the money lender, and so all their money is getting over. But the rich people, they take loan from the bank, they do the investment, they do the business, industry, trading, all that. Then they make lot of profit and they need to give back to the bank very little, with a little interest. So they'll have plenty of profit to save. That's why rich people are able to save more. Then what does all this suggest? First, the formal sector still meets only about half of the total credit needs of the rural people, and the remaining credit needs are met from informal services. So from this we can understand that the half of the people's loan is coming from informal sources, and the banks and other things, the formal sources, they are able to meet only half of the needs. So half is coming still from private sources. So most loans from informal lenders carry a very high interest rate and do little to increase the income of the borrowers. Thus, it is necessary that banks and cooperatives increase their lending, particularly in the rural areas, so that the dependence on informal sources of credit reduces. So, the formal sources like banks and cooperatives, they need to be more active in helping the poor people, especially in the rural areas, so that the rural area people can take money from the bank with a little interest and give back. Then they will be able to have some profit, they will be able to save some money, and their family will be becoming richer and richer. So in order to help the poor people living in the rural area or in the village area, the banks have to come forward in extending loans. If the banks don't help, then these poor people will continue to be exploited by the money lenders and the private people, and they will continue to suffer and they will never become rich. Always they will remain poor. So it is the banks have to come forward in helping these people in dealing with all these problems. Then secondly, while formal sector loans need to be expanded, it is also necessary that everyone receives these loans. So the banks also have to make sure that the loans are available to all the needy people. We should not make the categories. This fellow is rich, very influential, I shall give him loan. Or this fellow is poor farmer, if I don't give him also nothing. So we should not make that kind of divisions. At present, it is the richer households who receive formal credit, whereas the poor have to depend on the informal sources. It is important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. So, what is the solution? We have to, at present, all the banks are helping the richer people to get loan. The poor people are not benefited. So, it is important that formal credit is distributed more equally so that poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. So, the banks and the cooperatives, they have to come forward in helping the poor people to distribute the loan to them with a cheaper rate of interest, so that they also can come up in life. They also can have a development in their life, in their area, and so on. So if government does not establish banks in the rural area, then these rural people are going to suffer. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the government to set up banks and cooperatives in the rural area and make sure that they are lending loan to the poor farmers to help them to come up in life and so. then we can be sure that our country is in the path of development. So it is the responsibility of the government to see, to make sure that these benefits are reaching to the poor. They are able to get loan with a cheaper interest rate and so on. So a few questions are there, you can just see. What are the differences between formal and informal sources of credit? So we have already explained the difference between formal source and informal source of credit. First of all, the interest is very high. The informal credit, the interest is very high, while in the formal, the interest is very low. But here, in the formal, they demand a lot of papers, documents, collateral, and so on. But here in the informal, all those things are not needed. They give the loan based on the personal relationship. Why should credit at reasonable rates be available for all? So why should credit at reasonable rates be available for all? So why should we make the loan available for all at a reasonable rate? Then everybody can come up in their life. Otherwise only the rich people will be able to come up in their life and the poor people will continue to suffer. So in order to avoid that, in order to encourage everyone to do some business, to invest money, everybody is encouraged. So therefore we have to give the loan with a low interest. Then should there be a supervisor such as the Reserve Bank of India that looks into the loan activities of informal lenders? Why should its task be quite difficult? So we already said that the Reserve Bank of India monitors the activities of all the other banks. They have to submit periodically their annual report, that how they are making use of this money, how they are making use of this loan, to whom they are giving, what is interest they are taking, and so on. So all that is there, it is monitored by Reserve Bank of India. Then why do you think that the share of formal sector credit is higher for the richer households compared to the poor households? So we say that formal sector credit is higher. So why do the formal sector people, the rich people are able to take more loans? We saw in the chart. The rich people, almost 90% of them are taking loan from here. Why? Because the banks will demand collateral, banks will demand documents to keep us as security. And the poor people have no security and therefore they are not able to go to the bank and get it. And also the bank, there is a lot of form fill up, everything is there. And the poor people, most of them will be illiterate, ignorant, and they are not able to know how to write and so on. Therefore, best thing is go to the informal. There is no form fill up, nothing. So though they don't think much about paying high interest, since it is very easy, they just go and take it. That is what they do. So we shall stop today and we will continue in the next class and we will study about another group of people, another cooperatives that are ready to help the poor people in order to develop their skill, in order to develop their economy and their employment and so on. So we shall see in the next class. Till then, bye.